Welcome back to the deep dive. Today we are opening the vault on data that's usually pretty personal. We're talking body metrics.
Yeah, and this isn't just a summary.
No, not at all. Our source for this is a remarkable long-running blog series. It's got day-by-day weight tracking for the entire year of 2025. It is just a gold mine for this kind of analysis.
It truly is. We're looking at the hard quantitative results of one person's health journey. So our mission today is kind of twofold.
Right.
First, we're going to do a deep postmortem on that final quarter of 2025, so October through December. And then we're going to zoom out.
To see the big picture.
Exactly. We're going to look at the full year's trajectory and pinpoint the very intentional behaviors that caused every single fluctuation.
This is where the data tells a real story.
Yeah.
We're not just reading the numbers 68 or 69. We're actually tracking the result of a huge transition moving away from a really rigorous restrictive diet.
And into a phase focused on recovery. It's what makes this so fascinating, how beautifully the data correlates with these known lifestyle shifts. I mean, when you log things this carefully, the metrics will tell the truth.
They really will. Okay, so let's unpack the why behind the numbers in that fourth quarter. If you just look at the raw results for Q4, the main takeaway is a sustained weight gain. It's a net change of plus 1.35 kilograms. For anyone, tracking their weight, seeing the needle move up for 3 straight months can feel pretty alarming, right?
It absolutely can. It can feel like a failure. But if we connect this to the source material, to the bigger picture, this gain wasn't accidental at all. It was the direct outcome of choices that started back in late September.
A required course correction, really.
Precisely. So we need to look at what was driving it.
Right, and the source spells out a few linked causes, but the first one is the biggest shift in routine.
Key cause number one, without a doubt, was abandoning intermittent fasting. This individual transitioned back to a regular, structured 3-meal-a-day schedule.
That's a massive operational choice.
It's huge. You're suddenly giving your body so many more hours in the day to digest and absorb energy.
And that leads directly into the second driver, which is, it's almost inevitable.
A linked increase in overall caloric intake, yeah. Not only were there more meals, but the notes mention more processed foods, more meals eaten out.
More meals, more calories.
Exactly. But here's the critical piece of context. This is what changes the narrative.
Okay.
These dietary shifts, the more calories, and the regular timing, they happened at the same time as a serious effort to resolve a long-standing gastrointestinal issue. That included starting medication.
So this gain was arguably a necessary biological negotiation.
That's the perfect way to put it. This reframes the entire quarter. The individual wasn't, falling off the wagon. They were rebuilding their health from the inside out.
And it takes real discipline to see that number climb and know you're doing it for the right reasons. Throughout Q4, the weight was just operating in a new band, right? It was fluctuating between 68 and 69 kilograms.
Exactly. The goal wasn't weight loss in Q4. It was metabolic recovery.
Okay, let's get granular then. Let's look at the actual momentum across the quarter. We start October 1st at 68.05 kilograms. By New Year's Eve, December 31st, the final weight is 69.4 neo. That gives us a quarterly average of 68.62 kilograms, which is definitely higher than the quarter before.
It is, and the monthly breakdown really shows the force of this recovery. October was the biggest push. Starting at 68.05, it ended at 68.80 kilograms.
So that's a gain of plus 0.75 kilos.
A really significant gain. It solidified the reversal that had kind of quietly begun in September. It set the whole tone for the quarter.
Then we move into November, and the momentum continues, but you start to see a subtle shift in the rate of change.
Correct. November started at 68.80 and ended at 69.35. So that's a gain of plus 0.55 kilograms. The 7-day rolling average was still climbing, but just a little bit slower. The body was accepting the new regimen.
And what's fascinating to me is December. Everyone expects the holiday month to be just chaos, but this data shows a genuine slowdown.
It did. December started at 69.7 kilograms and ended at 69.4. Just a small net gain of plus 0.30 kilograms.
That suggests adaptation.
It absolutely does. The body wasn't just running away with the weight, it was finding its new footing. That slowdown is a key metric. It tells us the system was stabilizing.
Okay, but here's where my curiosity really kicks in. Looking at the extremes, the maximum weight of the entire year was recorded late in the quarter, 69.70 kilograms on December 28th.
Right.
So if the max weight was at the very end of the year, doesn't that sort of feel like a loss statistically? Even if it was medically necessary? How do you reconcile that feeling with the data?
That's an excellent question. It really speaks to the emotional disconnect that can happen when you track things this closely. Analytically, we reconcile it by looking at the fluctuation instead of just the peak.
Ah, okay.
So yes, the overall range from the quarter's minimum, which was 67.65 kilos, to that maximum was 2.05 kilograms. But here's the critical insight. The day-to-day fluctuations were actually less pronounced than in previous, more restrictive quarters.
So even though the whole baseline was higher, the daily volatility was lower.
Precisely. That stability proves the body had settled in. It had adapted to the new regimen. It wasn't wildly spiking and dropping anymore. It was confidently establishing a new, higher baseline. That stabilization is the real win of Q4.
That makes perfect sense. Okay, we've mapped the final quarter. We see this deliberate gain driven by health, followed by stabilization. Now we have to zoom out, but this whole recovery in the context of the full year.
And the full year tells an astonishingly dramatic story. Even though the total year-to-date net change was only plus 1.35 kilograms.
Right, from 68.805 to 69.4.
Yeah, that net increase is a statistical deception. It completely smooths over the journey. The average weight for the entire year was 67.92 kilos, but that number just doesn't capture the intensity.
We can really break 2025 down into three very distinct phases. It's almost like a controlled experiment, you know? Control, restriction, and then recovery.
Absolutely. Phase 1 was the initial spike and decline. That ran from about January to May. The year started with a typical post-holiday spike. It peaked above 69 kilograms in February, and then there was this gradual, controlled decline through the spring.
And that decline really set the stage for the deep valley that came next. Phase 2, the most intense part of the year.
Phase 2 was the mid-year dip, June through August. After things stabilized, there was a sharp, focused drop. This is where we hit the year's absolute minimum,
Which was 66.00 kilograms.
66 flat in late August. And this steep dip, crucially, was explicitly driven by a dedicated practice of intermittent fasting. It just shows how incredibly effective that strategy can be when you stick to it.
Hitting 66 kilos is a huge accomplishment, but it's demanding. It confirms how successfully the body was driven to that lower extreme through restriction.
It does. And for anyone who's ever tried aggressive fasting, you know, the mental cost of maintaining that low weight, it was a successful push, but ultimately it revealed some underlying issues that prompted the reversal.
Which brings us to phase 3, the late-year recovery and growth that we just detailed. The necessary and deliberate reversal.
That's right. Starting in September and going through December, after starting the medication and shifting back to regular meals, the weight entered that sustained recovery phase. It completely reversed the downward trend of phase 2.
Eventually surpassing the January starting point and hitting that new high of 69.70.
It was a controlled upward climb right out of that valley.
So, what does this all mean for you, the listener, the person who might be tracking your own data points? Well, the year reflects this major physiological valley, followed by a controlled, healthy recovery. The data proves it. These fluctuations were driven by intentional lifestyle changes. First restriction, then required health management. It wasn't random.
It demonstrates agency, a sophisticated understanding of cause and effect. Whether driving the weight down with fasting or driving it up for recovery, the person logging this data was always steering the ship.
Okay, so let's put this final 2025 data into a broader context. The source material shows tracking all the way back to 2021. This isn't just a flash in the pan.
Not at all. And if we look at that long-term data, the weight has historically stabilized over the last 2 years, generally fluctuating between 66 and 70 kilograms.
Right.
So even with that dramatic valley from the fasting, the individual rebounded quickly back into the upper end of that established range. That 66 to 70 kilogram range acts like a strong gravitational pull for this body.
That stable range is the definitive benchmark. But the source material leaves us with a cliffhanger for the next year, for 2026. The plan is to incorporate more strength training.
Which raises a really important question. We know muscle mass often means more weight. So will this deliberate change, this focus on building density, will that push the body out of that reliable 66 to 70 kilogram bracket?
Or will the body just maintain the range, maybe shift the average closer to 70, but the limits hold firm?
That's the challenge for the next deep dive.
It is. But for now, let's summarize the main insight from 2025. I mean, the data just proves how incredibly sensitive the body is to structured protocols like intermittent fasting.
And maybe more importantly, how quickly it prioritizes regaining ground when that protocol shifts to support essential health goals.
Exactly. And remember that stability we talked about in December, where the rate of gain slowed way down.
That's the key metric to watch. It suggests that while, yes, external factors drove the change, the body is quickly locking onto a new, slightly higher equilibrium, one that's definitely sitting above the year's overall average.
It's the ultimate evidence that in the pursuit of holistic health, sometimes gain is the definitive win.
Absolutely. Now, for the provocative thought we always like to leave you with, this one connects the precision of this analysis back to the person who created the data. The author of these notes is a self-described software plumber.
Right.
And they track metrics meticulously across all these different fields: gardening, fish keeping, programming, and dieting, and has done so for years.
So given that level of commitment to logging data, seeing how consistently the body returns to that 66 to 70 kilogram range despite these huge intentional shifts in diet, how much does the act of tracking itself influence the body's stability?
Is the tracking just an observation tool? Or is that detailed daily logging, that constant accountability, is that the hidden variable that keeps the fluctuations controlled?
Is data logging not just objective reporting, but actually part of the self-regulation process itself?
Something to mull over.
Definitely something to think about as you maybe start logging your own data points today. You have to ask yourself, is the observer affecting the experiment? We'll catch you on the next deep dive.